Hello and welcome to a Puzzled Panda video. Here are 100 facts about Cinderella. Guys, I cannot believe we are on the 12th Disney film already. To anyone that's new, this is a series where I do 100 facts about every Disney feature film, going from the very beginning of Snow White up to present day. If you are new to the channel, then this is a good time to start, because today I will be talking about the first film in Disney's silver era. So, let's get on with the facts. Cinderella is Disney's 12th animated feature film. At the time, Walt Disney Productions had suffered from losing the European film markets. This was due to the outbreak of World War II. Pinocchio, Fantasia and Bambi were not financial successes. They would become successful in time with several re-releases in theatres and on home video. At the time, however, the studio was over $4 million in debt and was on the verge of being bankrupt. Walt Disney wanted to go back to creating single narrative features and created 6 package films. In 1922, Walt Disney produced a laugh-o-gram cartoon based on Cinderella, and he had been interested in producing a second version, but this never happened. In 1943, Disney assigned Dick Huemer and Joe Grant to begin work on Cinderella as story supervisors, and it was given a preliminary budget of $1 million. However, by 1945, the story work was halted. In 1947, the first phase of storyboarding was in the process of being created. Following the release of Fun and Fancy Free, Walt Disney Productions' bank debt declined from $4.2 million to $3 million. That's still a lot of debt, Disney. Come on. Around this time, Walt Disney acknowledged that he needed to make more economical films, but emphasised to loaners that if they cut down the budget, it would destroy the whole feature animation business. Walt expressed his desire to return to producing full-length animated films, and luckily, the loaners agreed. By then, 3 animated projects were in development. These were Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan. Walt Disney felt that Cinderella was the safest bet, as it contained elements similar to Snow White, his most successful film yet, and he greenlit the project. Ben Sharpstein was assigned as supervising producer, while Hamilton Luske, Wilfred Jackson, and Clyde Geronimi became the sequence directors. Nevertheless, the story work on Alice resumed. Cinderella is the first Disney film in which all of Disney's 9 old men worked together as directing animators. The 9 old men were Disney's core animators, who Walt trusted to supervise the characters. Walt Disney jokingly referred to them as the 9 old men, even though they were still in their 30s. Walt Disney knew each of the animators' strengths and cast them accordingly. Eric Larson and Marc Davis animated Cinderella as they were incredible draftsmen. Eric Larson was responsible for introducing Cinderella during the opening scenes. Now this scene shows that she has not given up hope, even though she is used as a maid by her evil stepmother and stepsister. During the song she undoes her pigtails, and this is not an easy thing to do in animation. And this is because it's just a few pencil lines that represent her hair. Marc Davis helped design her appearance and outfits. She was a difficult character to animate, as she didn't show strong emotions. Both animators had to be subtle with their acting choices. Milt Kahl animated the prince, as he was one of the strongest draftsmen of the 9 old men. He had the ability to animate realistically, but he also had the chance to show off his comedic ability by animating the king and the herald. Another character he developed was the fairy godmother. Milt enjoyed using props to enhance the acting. In one scene she rests the wand's tip on her cheek to show she's in deep thought. Frank Thomas was the supervising animator for Lady Tremaine. Frank was surprised when Walt Disney assigned him the evil stepmother. Frank Thomas was known for cute, appealing characters like Pinocchio and Bambi, so he was excited for the new opportunity. He worked well with the voice actress Eleanor Audley, who also provided live action reference. The voice and the animation complement each other perfectly.
It's Eleanor Audley and me, because we worked and talked about these and we worked on how to do it. I liked where she's first lying in bed petting Lucifer, her cat, and telling Cinderella said, "You have idle time on your hands, time for vicious practical jokes."
Now, let me see. There's the large carpet in the main hall. Clean it.
She made me jump every time she whirled around and so snapped. And her eyes were real strong.
But I just finished. Do them again.
And then mellowed down again.
Then scrub the terrace, sweep the halls and the stairs, clean the chimneys, and of course there's the mending and the sewing and the laundry. Oh, yes. And one more thing.
And don't forget to give Lucifer his bath. You know, her voice had such color in it. And whenever you captured that in the drawings, it gave you a very satisfying feeling.
Live action was used to help aid the animators. Animators would have to put their own spin on the animation to make it interesting. Simply copying the reference would make it a dull and lifeless performance, so they would strengthen the poses and change the timing to give the scene personality.
They'd shoot live action and they'd blow it up to animation-sized paper, and then they'd put a sheet of animation paper on it and draw right over it.
Some of the animators kind of, balked at that a little bit. They just like, I can do this, I don't need it.
If the live action was good, well, I used it, and if it wasn't, I didn't use it. And I'd use the best parts of it, and I'd use it to help me enhance something, But I still didn't like to use it.
Ollie Johnston was Frank Thomas's best friend. They would often help each other on scenes and give suggestions to each other on how to improve. Ollie was the supervising animator of the Ugly Stepsisters, Drizella and Anastasia. Ollie chose to focus less on the ugly side and more on the comedy, apart from one scene, in which the two stepsisters are presented to the Duke. He wanted to show the sisters as ugly as possible and showed this to Walt.
The stepsisters were the broadest characters that I had done up to that point, certainly. A lot of scenes where I even went too broad. I remember one where Anastasia, she was smiling, like that, silly smile. So I went real broad with that, thinking I'm going to get something really funny out of this. But finally Walt called me in. He says, she is a little bit ugly. I suppose you could fix that.
Ward Kimball had a passion for creating scenes which you could never see in real life. He wanted to exaggerate scenes and lent into cartoony drawings over realism. This created some incredibly imaginative animation. Ward Kimball was put in charge to develop the stepmother's evil cat, Lucifer. Ward Kimball was criticised at the time for creating a cartoony character rather than an anatomically correct cat. Ward didn't care, as he believed he could create amazing comedic entertainment. And he was correct. I love the scene when he runs up the stairs and his whole body becomes the shape of the stairs. Now, anatomically that makes zero sense, but the gag is funny, and if the gag is funny, then it works for the scene. Years later, even the extremely talented Milt Kahl admitted that he could never have done anything like that.
I didn't have to work making those very careful drawings of Cinderella and some of the other animators had to work on. And it was pure comedy, the old cat-mouse relationship. And my problem was to develop a cat that looked mean.
Ward Kimball had the luckiest role because the rest of us were sweating under all these restrictions of the live action we'd shot. They didn't shoot live action for him, and he wouldn't have followed it in the first place.
John Lounsbury was responsible for transforming a horse and a dog into a footman during the fairy godmother scene. Each animal is magically lifted into the air. They bounce in sync with the lyrics. The animation combined with the special effects create a stunning performance. It was Walt Disney's idea to use multi-tracks for vocals. This was one of the first times this was achieved. He wanted this so that during the song Sing Sweet Nightingale, Cinderella could harmonise with herself. Walt Disney wanted Bubbles to appear with other versions of Cinderella singing the harmonies. Eric Larson animated the scene in which Cinderella finds out that every maiden is invited to the ball. His acting choices demonstrate Cinderella's hope and joy at this news. Wooly Riverman built incredible suspense during a scene in which the mice have to deliver a key to Cinderella, who is locked away in her room. The tension grows the higher up the staircase the mice travel, as we wonder as the audience if they will make it in time. Walt Disney was asked what was his favourite ever piece of animation. He stated that it was the magical sequence where Cinderella's ball gown forms around her. Marc Davis was the animator for the scene, but he's always been very humble about it. He said it wasn't about his drawings, it was the idea behind it. Walt Disney loved this scene because it showed that good things happen and dreams do come true. This was the way Walt felt himself. He had come from very humble beginnings, and now he was becoming a pioneer in Hollywood. Walt himself was a real Cinderella story.
It took us around 2 years to do it with all the experimental work in story and shooting the live action and that. But once we started animating it, it went quite fast. And we probably did the whole thing in 6 months.
The film was originally released in theatres on February 15, 1950. The film became a critical success, garnering the best reception for a Disney animated film since Dumbo. Time wrote that Cinderella is proof that Walt Disney knows his way around fairyland, harking back to the style of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The film was Disney's greatest box office success since Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, earning $8 million in gross rentals.
We all knew that it was a good picture because you could see it from the time we were shooting the live action on it. If Walt had been right in his vision of what the audience wanted, well, we'd be in business, and he was right. They just loved the picture.
People in France especially liked it, and it became France's 16th biggest film of all time with 13.2 million tickets sold. The success of Cinderella allowed Disney to carry on producing films throughout the 1950s. This film marked the launch of Walt Disney Music Company. Up to this point, Disney always licensed its music to other record companies. Walt Disney realised if he released the music himself, it would create more funds to make the movies. Disney Music was moving into the big business level. The Cinderella album hit #1 on the Billboard magazine pop charts. Cinderella was re-released in 1957, 1965, 1973, 1981 and 1987. Cinderella has had a lifetime domestic gross of $95.5 million and a lifetime international gross of $315 million. Adjusted for inflation, the film has had a lifetime gross of $532.4 million. That's a lot of Dole Whips you could buy, Disney. The film was released on VHS. Oh, remember when those were a thing? They were quality. It was released on October the 4th, 1988 as part of the Walt Disney Classics collection. Disney initially shipped 4.3 million VHS copies to retailers. However, due to strong consumer demand, more than 7 million copies were shipped. At the time of its first home video release, it was the best-selling VHS title until it was overtaken by E.T. On October the 4th, 1995, the film was released for VHS and Laserdisc. Look, I'm not going to lie, I don't remember the Laserdisc. I don't even know what it was. I guess it's like another video type thing. But it was released under the Masterpiece Collection lineup. This release saw Disney ship another 15 million VHS copies, of which 8 million were sold in the first month. Man, these VHSs made some serious money back in the day. Cinderella's castle is the icon and centre of 2 Disney theme parks, the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland. This is not to be confused with Sleeping Beauty's castle at the original Disneyland in Anaheim. I always get the two confused at which castle is at which park. I'm going to make an effort to remember this year. Cinderella Castle was completed in July 1971 after about 18 months of construction. The castle is 189 feet tall as measured from water level. Cinderella Castle is more than 100 feet taller than Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland. The building uses forced perspective, so the castle appears bigger than it is. This is achieved by the castle getting smaller the higher it gets. This means that the windows and bricks near the top of the castle are tiny compared to real bricks. There is a Cinderella suite inside the castle. However, before you start to attempt to make bookings, it is for invite only. From January 2007 to December 2009, the suite was used as a prize for Disney Dreams giveaway at the Walt Disney World Resort during the Year of a Million Dreams celebration. On February the 17th, 2020, in honour of the 70th anniversary of the release of the Disney classic movie Cinderella, Disney announced the castle will be getting a repaint within the spring and summer 2020. Cinderella is a meetable character in the Disney parks. She usually appears in her ball gown during all meet and greets and during parades. Cinderella has had numerous different floats throughout the parades, including versions of her carriages and pumpkins. Merchandise is still available throughout the parks, which I always think is amazing for a film that's 70 years old. What other films are 70 years old and still getting merchandise? Decades later, it was followed by 2 direct-to-video sequels, Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True, and Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time. A live-action remake, directed by Kenneth Branagh, was released in 2015. Cinderella and the Fairy Godmother appear in the video game Kingdom Hearts, and a world based on the film Castle of Dreams appears in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. And for the final fact of the day, Cinderella and the other Disney princesses all make guest appearances in the 2018 film Ralph Breaks the Internet. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and follow me on my other social medias. Hit the bell icon to join me in my next video, 100 Facts about Alice in Wonderland.